Welcome to Just Ride Bikes. I'm David and this is the Ventum GS1, and it might just be the best value gravel bike you can buy in 2024. And I say that because we have a full carbon fibre frame and fork, SRAM's most affordable electronic group set, and some decent wheels, tyres and finishing parts, and this bike here retails for $3,000. To put that price into perspective, both Giant and Canyon offer similar carbon fibre gravel bikes, but equipped with Shimano GRX mechanical shifting group sets. So a lot of bike for the money. But how does it ride? Is it actually any good and worth spending your hard-earned money on? Well, in a few minutes we'll go for a spin, go for a ride and see how it actually performs. But first, before that, let me give you a quick tour of the bike and some of the standout features. So let's dive in. The reason Ventum can offer that great value for money is because they sell direct, a bit like Canyon. They have no dealers or shops. You buy direct through their website and the bike is delivered to your home in a box, passing a discount on to the customer. But the downside to that approach is you can't go to your local bike shop and take the bike for a spin around a car park. But many people are very happy buying bikes and other products online without seeing them in the flesh or even riding them. And that's where reviews like this come in handy. And it's my job to try and inform you whether this is the right bike for you or not. And you can help support my reviews here at Just Ride Bikes by hitting that subscribe button down below. So I'm looking at the bike, and firstly, well, I love the colour. A brand new colour for the Ventum GS1. And the bike has all the hallmarks of a modern gravel bike. And it's one clearly designed for speed and racing. We have semi-internal cable routing up front, an aero down tube, the dropped rear stays, and the chainstays are dropped as well to maximise tyre clearance, which on this bike is 48mm, which is pretty good. It's more than a Canyon Grail, but a bit less than the Giant Revolt, so plenty of tyre clearance for most people. The bike can take a front mech. We have a blanking plate on the seat tube if you don't want a 1x and you prefer a 2x. The shame that bit isn't colour matched to the rest of the frame. That's a bit of an oversight, I think, but given the price, maybe it's one we can overlook. And backing up the fact this is clearly a bike designed for speed and racing, there aren't a full suite of bike packing mounts. We do have the bento box top tube mounts and an extra bottle cage on the underside of the down tube, but there aren't sadly any extra mounts on the fork blades for fitting extra cages for bottles and bags. And there aren't even any mudguard or fender mounts, which is a real shame. So not the most versatile gravel bike, definitely one aimed at those people who want a stripped back, speed, race focused setup. Two other details I really like include the T47 bottom bracket, and then we have a SRAM UDH compatible dropout. So the frame is future proofed just in case SRAM or even perhaps Shimano have anything exciting planned for their new gravel bike group sets in the future. The other key feature detail on a bike worth pointing out is the fork dropout. And there we have a adjustable flip chip, so you can adjust the fork rake and therefore the trail of the bike between 45 and 50mm, and that impacts the steering of the bike. So you can either have it faster steering or slower steering to tune the bike to the riding style you like and the terrain you are riding on. Okay, hello viewers. You join me about halfway around my test loop today. It's a lovely day in the forest. The sun is out, but it's still wet as anything. I found loads of mud, as you can probably tell. And something I forgot to mention earlier is that I'm riding a size ML, and this bike with no pedals weighs 8.6 kilos on my scales, which I think is pretty good for the price point and the equipment on the bike. Certainly no featherweight, but it's not heavy, and a pretty good weight compared to some bikes I've tested in the past that cost a lot more money. And you can certainly make the bike a lot lighter with a few upgrades of course, but based on the climbing I've done so far, the weight really isn't a big factor at all. I'm not going to lie, it doesn't go uphill quite as nicely as my Crux, but that costs a lot more money. The whole frame costs more than this entire bike, so worth bearing that in mind. And riding this bike, I'm reminded of the Cervelo Aspero and the Canyon Grail to an extent. It feels very racy, it wants to go fast, as cliched as that sounds. Clearly plenty of stiffness from the frame and the fork, and despite that weight, it really gets along in a decent hurry. Sprints out the corners very well, good power transfer. It's a very racy feeling bike. Definitely a bike for those of you who want to go fast, want to cover ground as quickly as possible, whether racing or just riding for fun. So the speed box is definitely very firmly ticked indeed. It displays similar handling to the Grail and Aspero as well. The geometry is kind of middle of the road, neither too progressive and slack or conservative and steep and upright. So numbers give a good balance, good handling traits on a range of trails, gravel tracks, single track and the road as well. So an easy bike to jump on and feel right at home on. There's pretty good damping from the tyres and the bike from some of the rougher, rockier trails I've been riding today. It's not the harshest riding bike, it's definitely smoother than that Focus Atlas I rode a few weeks ago. And it's similar to a Canyon Grail and the Cervelo Aspero. Not as smooth as a Giant Defy or a Specialized Diverge, but it does sit somewhere in the middle of those two extremes. And testing comfort, compliance on a gravel bike is such a tricky job. I'm using all my years of experience here, riding familiar trails, swapping the wheels and tyres around. But I'd say comfort is pretty good. It could be better though. There isn't a lot of exposed seat posts from the frame with a horizontal top tube, and you can't fit a suspension seat post because of the profile, but you could fit a suspension stem, but I don't really think it needs it for smooth gravel I'm riding right now. There you go, baby wild boar, native to Forest of Dean, but it's something you rarely see. What a treat. Okay, let's see how the bike copes with some single track and mountain bike trails. Nothing too technical, but nice to get off the wider gravel tracks onto something a bit more twisty and turny and fun. And the bike is coping really nicely. The geometry numbers of the bike strike a good balance. It's neither the most conservative nor the most progressive in the gravel category, but strikes a happy medium, and it's giving me plenty of steering agility through the corners. We've got a nice stretch to the hoods despite a very short stem. Could go longer if you need, but the short stem keeps the steering light and fairly quick. Okay, for the next part of the test, let's see how it copes with roads, tarmac, pavement, whatever you want to call it. And straight away it feels like a nice road race bike, really. These WTB Volpine tyres roll very quickly indeed on tarmac, no noise, seemingly no resistance really. I mean, there is some, but they don't feel draggy. And get nice and aero on the bike. It feels good. So yes, it does road very well indeed. Can firmly tick that box on this test. Right, onto something a little bit juicier, spicier, and a bit more fun. Something spicy, okay? It's slippery as heck. One of the reasons I reckon this is a great value bike for 2024 is the fact you are getting electronic shifting at this price point where bigger brands only offer mechanical shifting. Now, we could argue all day long about the pros and cons of electronic versus mechanical shifting, and I'm sure you know which camp you're in. But there's no denying electronic shifting is lovely to use. So easy, press a button, the mirror touch, and you change gear. And when you're riding off-road, you've been riding all day, you're bike packing, that ease of shifting is very nice indeed. And there's no cables to wear out or snap. Maintenance, in my experience with SRAM AXS, is very, very good indeed. And the range of gears from this 1x setup has been adequate for the riding I have available to me. Getting up the hills okay, bobbing down the other side just fine. The hood's the same as Force and Rival, so small, compact, ergonomic, and the brakes are very, very powerful indeed. This is the beauty of gravel bikes. From the road to the gravel tracks to the forest single track, all on the same bike, all on the same ride. A big smile plastered across my face. No close passes here for motorists. Love it, absolutely love it. And the sun is shining, what a day. Good ride that, despite being just a bit muddy, as you can probably tell, what I would give for some dry, dusty trails right now. But let me give you some likes, dislikes, and a verdict in a few moments. I'll start with the bad stuff, and really, to be honest, there isn't much bad about the bike at all. More small kind of things I would change if I could. Firstly, I would love a slightly wider tyre. 40 good, but I think 45 would be better for the bike and the person it's aimed at. Trade in some speed and weight for more comfort, which a bike does lack a little bit. Talking of comfort, while I love the near horizontal top tube, it does limit how much seat post you have exposed outside of the frame, and that in turn limits how much the saddle and seat post can flex back and forth, and does limit the amount of comfort at the saddle compared to other bikes with a more sloping top tube. So a more sloping top tube will give more seat post and give more comfort. The other small gripe is the fact we have a D-shaped aero seat post, which on a race bike is fine. But on a bike of this price does limit your option to fit either a dropper seat post for more gnarly terrain or a suspension flexi seat post like a Redshift, a Cane Creek, or the Canyon VCLS or the Ergon one as well. Because for what I see as a potential target customer for a bike, a bit more comfort would be a nice thing. But if you are a privateer racer, if such a thing exists anymore, and you want a bike that can be fast and racy, but on a budget, then, well, aero it is. And then the biggest miss for me is the lack of mudguard or fender mounts, which limits the versatility of the bike compared to other bikes in the category, especially when we have such generous tyre clearance. You could easily fit a mudguard around these tyres or change the wheels and tyres for a road bike setup. So a few small kind of gripes rather than any major issues to speak of. And then likes, well, the way it rides, the handling, the speed, all those attributes are very good. And then the option to adjust the fork rake and therefore the trail is nice to have. Probably a bit overkill for some people, but no, not a bad thing at all. You can leave it as it is and it's just fine. I do like the nice tidy cable routing around the handlebar and stem, which are two-piece, so you can change the stem for a longer one, a different handlebar if you need. And then I love the fact you are getting branded components. WTB for wheels, tyres and saddle, and FSA for the bar and stem. And I have to say, I love the fact you are getting an electronic group set on a bike of this price, where bigger manufacturers can only offer a mechanical group set. It works really well, the same as Rival, Force and Red in terms of functionality. Blindfolded, you'd be hard pressed to tell the difference. The same battery technology, all the gear range you need. There's a clutch mechanism in there to stop the chain bouncing around. It works extremely well. And to get that group set and technology on a bike of this price is pretty astonishing, it has to be said. Which leads me onto my verdict. Should you buy the Ventum GS1 or avoid it? Well, I think it's an easy bike to recommend. And if you are in the market for a new bike and you have a budget of about $3,000, well, I think the GS1 should be right at the top, if not the top, of your shortlist in terms of the performance, the equipment, everything about the bike really shines very brightly indeed. Anyway, Let me know what you think by leaving a comment down below. I'll put a link to their website down below as well, so you can check out this bike and other bikes in the range. And if for some reason this bike doesn't really float your boat, then here's a video of some bikes that might float your boat. And don't forget to subscribe by hitting the button down here. But that is all for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again very soon.